of the house now, so
Eat Army!
thank you for that. Love the support.
14 years.
Not the last two. Not the last two. I've got some of them for you, though, Captain. Attorney General Herring, Senator Wexton, soon to be Representative Wexton, congratulations. Delegate Gaditis, Delegate LaRock, Delegate Reed, Mayor Burke, Supervisor Buona, Mr. Bryant, Mr. Chapin, Reverend Bryant, Major Boykin, members of the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors, members of the Leesburg Town Council, distinguished visitors, and of course, veterans of the Armed Forces, good morning. On behalf of the 20th Division and the Virginia National Guard, I'm very honored to be with you here on this crisp autumn day to celebrate a most special Veterans Day, the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I. Mr. Chapin, thank you very much for that kind introduction. I want to first recognize the work of the George C. Marshall International Center for the hosting this event and honoring me with the invitation to speak. The George C. Marshall International Center plays a pivotal role in preserving the legacy of one of America's most influential and impactful veterans, General George C. Marshall, whose home we gather at today. Please join me in a round of applause to thank them for organizing today's event. Also, before I get to my main remarks today, I want to thank some of Loudoun County's community organizations. You may have noticed some of the soldiers that are walking around here today. These are your hometown citizen soldiers from Charlie Company, 3rd Battalion, 116th Infantry. 10 years ago, I was their battalion commander, and we were heading off to fight in Iraq as part of the Iraqi surge campaign. As we were preparing to depart, then Mayor Umstadt and then State Senator Herring came to see us off. They were joined by Post 1177 of the VFW, Post 34 of the American Legion, Chapter 227 of the Vietnam Veterans of America, and dozens of Loudoun County citizens. There was no doubt our nation was behind us and our families. Over the next year, Charlie Company patrolled and fought in northern Iraq. They fought more combat actions and had more wounded than any other company in my battalion. In short, they did Loudoun County, Leesburg, and its citizens proud while facing a tough and determined enemy. We came home and got off the bus, and by the way, everybody came home. Loudoun County was there to welcome us back with a wonderful celebration. So today, as you recognize our veterans for their service, please know that we veterans thank you for your steadfast support. While we were deployed, you helped our families. We received letters from school children all over the county. You sent care packages, and most importantly, you sent your prayers for our safe return. We owe Loudoun County, its people, and its community organizations a debt we can never repay. Over the last century, America has honored her veterans and their sacrifices in many ways. Veterans Day itself came about in 1954 through an act of Congress designed to honor all veterans of the armed forces, both living and dead. It grew out of the Armistice Day commemoration, which was first observed by President Woodrow Wilson in 1919. Our allies in the First World War dubbed November 11th as Remembrance Day. Both commemorations were dedicated to the pursuit of world peace due to the horrors of World War I. To fully understand the desire of our ancestors to honor veterans and while also pursuing the cause of world peace, we need to look back in time 100 years to November of 1918. These were tough and heartrending times. The war by then was 4 years old. World War I subjected humanity to the first mechanized war of the industrial age. Lethal new weapons like the airplane, the submarine, the tank, the water-cooled machine gun, the radio, and poison gas all made their debut on the battlefield with devastating effect. Between 1914 and 1918, there were an estimated 40 million military and civilian casualties, of which 15 million were killed. The war caused major shifts in the borders of nations with the death of both Austro-Hungarian and Ottoman empires, as well as the end of the monarchies in Germany and Russia. Communism would find a foothold in Tsarist Russia and bring about the beginning of the Soviet Union. Adding to the destruction of political upheaval, the Spanish flu pandemic would infect nearly 1/3 of the world's human population in 1918 and would kill over 50 million people worldwide. Tough times indeed. One can easily see why the people who lived through those horrible years wanted World War I to be the war to end all wars. However, from those tough times, there will be hopeful signs. The League of Nations, predecessor to the United Nations, would be born as a means of collective security and peaceful conflict resolution. The end of the war would also hasten the end of colonialism, which set conditions for more freedom and self-determination in Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. America would also begin its ascendance as a global leader. In 1919, 1 year after the armistice was signed, President Woodrow Wilson would remark, "To us in America, the reflections of Armistice Day will be filled with solemn pride in the heroism of those who died in the country's service and with gratitude for the victory, both because of the things which we were saved from and because the opportunity of given America to show her sympathy with peace and justice in the Council of Nations." In the end, World War I would mark a major turning point in human history, with both positive and negative effects. One of the most positive and enduring effects over the last 100 years has been the contributions of America's military veterans. Including World War I, America has been engaged in 6 major wars and several smaller campaigns over the last century. These include World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and the campaigns in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria as part of the global war on terror. Odds are everyone here today has a close affiliation with at least one veteran. Throughout every point in American history, our citizens have answered the call to serve and protect our republic. But who are these citizens that became veterans? Take a moment and think of someone you know who has served in America's armed forces. Picture them in your mind. For me, it's my father, who fought as a Marine in Vietnam, or my grandfather, who was a sailor in the Pacific in World War II, or more recently, my 2 sons, who served in the Coast Guard and Navy respectively. We all know someone who has worn the uniform in harm's way. It might be a family member, a coworker, a teacher, a coach, or a friend. The point is, our veterans are us. They are woven into the fabric of our lives. As a citizen soldier, I'm constantly reminded of that fact. My own unit, the 20th Infantry Division, is comprised of 18,000 soldiers across 5 different states. That means we have 18,000 stories about soldier veterans who serve both the nation and their communities. We have an artillery officer that teaches high school history, an infantryman who is a town police chief, a cavalry officer that runs his own venture capital company, and a helicopter pilot that is a cybersecurity expert for a bank. There are literally thousands of other stories. Each of these great Americans is a part of the rich tapestry that shows how deeply they are intertwined, our veterans are intertwined in our communities and our lives. Before the sun sets this afternoon, I encourage you each to reach out and thank a veteran for their work in defending the nation. This past summer, I was reminded of the wonderful effect that a meaningful thank you can have. I had the opportunity to speak at my division's D-Day monument on Omaha Beach in Normandy, France on June 6th. For those of you that know the history of the 20th Division, you know the 20th was assigned the responsibility to seize Omaha Beach on D-Day back in 1944. The fighting that day was incredibly savage with very heavy casualties. The small town of Bedford, Virginia would lose more of her sons on that bloody beach in that single battle than any town in America in all of World War II. Omaha Beach in Normandy is hallowed ground. When I arrived that cold and rainy morning to give my speech, I was amazed at the reaction of the French people. 74 years after the landings, there were well over 1,000 people gathered to thank America for her sacrifice. There were literally several busloads of middle school and high school age kids there to commemorate the landings and say thank you. All along the beach are dozens of monuments to the different units that landed to liberate Europe. The local French people volunteer year-round to perfectly manicure the landscape around each monument. Oftentimes we hear about how America's sacrifices are forgotten around the world. But I would argue that just as often those sacrifices are in fact remembered. In 1944, the French people promised to never forget the sacrifice made by America's veterans and their allies to free them from Nazi oppression. I can tell you, they have kept that promise. If you ever get a chance, visit the coast of Normandy on June 6th. I guarantee it will be an uplifting experience. As I close my remarks today, I'll remind all of us that on Veterans Day, we honor every man and woman that has ever worn the uniform of our nation. They are the courageous people that have selflessly secured America throughout our history. As we honor these great Americans, we must never forget those that are still missing today and those that never made it home. We must also remember those that are still standing watch on freedom's frontier today. They are out there right now in places like Manbij, Syria, Taji, Iraq, Kandahar, Afghanistan, Eastern Europe, the Republic of Korea, and 100 other places. They are on patrol in the South China Sea and the North Atlantic. They are loyal and obedient to the American nation. Remember, honoring our veterans is about more than what we say or do one day out of the year. It's about recognizing and supporting their sacrifice and that of their families every day of the year. That's the sacred trust between America and all who defend its ideals. As the father of our country, General George Washington, once noted, the willingness with which our young people are likely to serve in any war, no matter how justified, shall be directly proportional to how they perceive the veterans of early wars were treated and appreciated by their nation. Veterans Day is one of those opportunities to sustain that promise and trust. The great news is the bond between America and those that defend her has never been stronger. And that's a great Veterans Day message for any of you. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been my great honor to be with you today. Thank you for coming, and may God continue to richly bless the United States of America. Thank you.